Thank you very much, sir. That was a very generous introduction. Thank you to Republic Media for inviting me here. I have to confess I'm blown away by the campus, and having seen the grandeur of the campus and the caliber of other speakers in the lineup, I'll try my best to live up to the billing. So we'll discuss coffee can investing, folks, but we'll discuss coffee can investing with a thoda sa flavor, different flavor. The flavor being coffee can for the world, right? Increasingly, as our country becomes richer, wealthier, and as our government liberalizes investing, it's actually very affordable for Indians to go global with coffee can investing. So I'll discuss the whole concept that I created 10 years ago, and then we'll discuss how to do global coffee can, right? India mein baith ke invest in the world at large and make money from the world in its entirety. So let's start by looking at the world, right? What's really interesting when you look at global investing is amongst the big markets in the world, right? Amongst the big markets in the world, there are only two big markets which give you double-digit dollar returns decade after decade, right? Just imagine, pure duniya mein, in the whole world, there are only two big markets which give you double-digit dollar returns decade after decade. And those two markets obviously will be the United States of America first. But remarkably, after the United States of America, it's India, which is the only other market which gives double-digit dollar returns in the last 10 and 20 years, right? Now, the remarkable thing about this is, if you look up there, you'll see other big markets. China, for example, is there. China hasn't given double-digit dollar returns in any of the last three decades. Other than India and America, Taiwan gives double-digit dollar as well, but Taiwan is effectively one company. It's a famous company called TSMC, which makes lots of money. Basically, every phone in this room, folks, every phone in this room, the chip inside the phone comes from TSMC, right? So TSMC effectively, I hope the folks in Taiwan don't mind my saying this, TSMC effectively is part of America. Although geographically it's part of Asia, effectively TSMC is a part of America. And therefore, I go back to my original theme. The world's two largest free market democracies, right? Those are special words, free market democracies. The world's two largest free market democracies are the only markets which give you double-digit dollar return, right? So we'll focus in this presentation on these two markets, right? So since our hosts have been so kind to invite me to discuss coffee can investing, let me do a quick flashback. 10 years ago on the Bombay-Pune highway, I was thinking of a way to simplify investing. And after a few discussions with my colleagues, I realized sitting at Lonavala, that simplest way to think about investing is just two metrics. First metric is return on capital, right? How much money does a business make captured in one metric, return on capital, kam se kam, minimum 15%. And second metric is revenue growth. How fast does a business grow captured in revenue growth, minimum double digits, right? So think of it like this. You want to invest, you want to get the measure of a king, a Raja, right? The height of his palace, the height of his fort is revenue growth. And the depth of the moat, the depth of the protection around the fort is ROC. So if we created these two simple metrics, 15% return on capital, 20% revenue growth. And for 10 years, right, we back-tested it. So all the way back to 2000, we realized it makes a lot of money. So 2016 is when the first time I published this. 2018, I wrote this book. This book got translated into Gujarati, Marathi, Hindi. And most interestingly, it got published in Thailand and Thai as well. Right? And that was a little difficult to persuade my wife that I have to go to Thailand on a book tour. Right? She didn't give me permission for that. But anyway, it's published across the world now in many different languages. So all the way till 2020, this strategy made money hand over fist. Those bars on the screen that you see is outperformance to the Sensex. Remember, we're not hiring a fund manager for this. This is a simple strategy saying, look at the last 10 years, identify companies with minimum 15% ROCE, minimum 10% revenue growth, load up on those companies, stay invested and get rich. It's as simple as that, right? So the strategy worked beautifully all the way till COVID. Unfortunately, the onset of COVID broke the strategy. Why did the onset of COVID break the strategy? Because that 1.5 years when COVID happened, very few companies in India grew at 10%, and very few companies in India were able to make money. So COVID broke the strategy, and then I'm going to show you the returns from the strategy year upon year. You can see all the way up to 2021, right? The strategy is making money hand over fist. So between 2017 and 2021, we compounded folks at 25%, right? 25%. That means we tripled our clients' money in 5 years. Then as I was saying, Diwali 21, I realized this is not going to work because courtesy COVID, revenue growth and return on capital got hit. And as we recovered out of COVID, as India recovered from COVID, the strategy didn't work. So for 22, 23, 24, it didn't work. But the good news, and I suspect the reason why I'm standing in front of you is this year, it's back in business, right? Coffee Can is back. Now, part of what I'm going to talk to you about is why is Coffee Can back? And the second part I'm going to talk to you about is, given that it works so well in India, how you can apply it across the world and make a lot of money from the world's best companies and India's best companies, right? So let's focus on the bar right at the end, right? As I'm showing you 2025, you can see Coffee Can is working again. It's beating the market again this year. Question is why? So one very simple insight I learned from living through this is when you have a situation where the entire market gets hammered, as it got during COVID, then when the market recovers, when the economy recovered from COVID, it was very difficult to discern between, say, what is a champion and what is an also-ran, right? गधे और घोड़े में फर्क बोलना बहुत मुश्किल हो गया in 2022. In the post-COVID recovery, 22, 23 especially, even ordinary companies did well because they too were recovering from COVID. So the difference between a champion bank and an ordinary bank wasn't apparent in the first 2 years of the COVID recovery. Then as we've gone far away from COVID, thankfully we're now 3 years from COVID, the difference is becoming apparent again, right? So in our profession, we keep looking at something called earnings growth. So how fast does the Nifty grow profitability? That's the blue bar. As the blue bar soared, look at 2022, look at the blue bar going to 43%. Right? In that sort of environment, nobody needs to do Coffee Can. You can buy any old stock, right? Even a monkey throwing darts would have made money. You don't need to buy champion franchises. But as those exceptional growth rates out of the COVID recovery have ebbed away, as they have faded, the strong franchises are coming through again, right? And you can see this here. So this is India's earnings growth. The immediate post-COVID recovery, you can see in the summer of 2020, summer of 23, right? 25% earnings growth. So immediately after COVID, earnings growth soared in India. As we all emerged from our houses, spent money in shopping malls, on holidays, earnings growth soared. And as the economy has normalized, it's become easier for champion franchises to show that, look, we have far more muscle than the ordinary franchise. Now, the government is seized of the situation. The government has done this year, 2025, the government actually has done an extraordinary range of things to revive earnings growth. So the first measure I'm sure you are all aware of is 1st February 2025, the finance minister cut income taxes, so all the way up to 12 lakhs, there's no income tax. The second measure, which was controversial, but which I supported, was the ban on gambling, right? The ban on gambling, to our mind, it pushed money back from gambling into real consumption. The third measure was the GST cuts just before Diwali. The fourth measure is the RBI cutting interest rates. The RBI has already cut interest rates by 1%. And a fifth measure, if we have people from the government watching this, I would request you to consider is, I think futures and options trading is costing the country around $12 billion a year. 1 trillion rupees of hard-earned middle-class money is going on F&O trading. I think we need curbs on this so that money, rather than being transferred to foreign investors or being transferred to prop traders, gets spent by the middle class on real things, real consumption, drives the economy. So if there are people in government listening, I would request you to consider looking at F&O and seeing if we can curb the extent of speculative trading that we're getting in the F&O market. But be that as it may, I think the government's delivered a stimulus to the markets, delivered a stimulus to the economy. 1.8% of GDP is the measure of the stimulus. This is the largest stimulus I've seen post-COVID, right? And as this comes through, as the government again revives the economy, we are seeing the CCP companies. The CCP companies are once again pulling ahead of the market. Right now, the insight I have on this is, my reckoning is the next couple of years, what India will now grapple with is the AI transition, right? In a range of professions, including mine, AI is making itself felt. So not very far away from where I'm speaking are the headquarters of a remarkable company called InfoEdge. We are shareholders of InfoEdge, and InfoEdge publishes some very interesting data. So I asked for the data going back to 2008. Right? InfoEdge publishes data on how many white-collar jobs India creates. And what the white-collar job data from InfoEdge is telling us is something very interesting. What we are learning from the Naukri data, literally their jobs portal is called Naukri, so I'm going to call it the Naukri data. What we're learning from the Naukri data is that till 2020, we were basically doubling white-collar jobs in India every 5 to 6 years. Right? Just think about it. One of the largest economies in the world, we were doubling white-collar jobs in India every 5 to 6 years. The sector leading that doubling was IT. Right? IT is the largest employer in our country, employs 8 million people. IT was doubling jobs every 4 to 5 years. Right? That was India's jobs engine. In a typical year, the IT sector, the tech sector, was hiring 1.5 million people, 1.5 million graduates, right? That engine, that jobs engine has suffered courtesy AI. Post-COVID, we can see in the jobs data or the announcements from the big tech companies, they're simply not doing that sort of hiring. Typically, each person working in a white-collar job creates employment for 5 more people, right? Your cook, your cleaner, your driver, right? The waiter at the restaurant and so on. As the jobs engine, which is fired up by IT, as that has conked off, overall job creation in the economy has conked off, and that's the negative downblast that the government needs to counteract through tax cuts, right? I think we will see more rate cuts from the RBI, and I would submit to you that more tax cuts are also necessary to deal with the disruption of AI on tech jobs, tech being the biggest job creator, right? Now, we are pragmatic people. Our job is to make money. So if AI is leading to job losses in India, the natural response should be, let's figure out a way to make money from AI, right? How do we make money from AI, right? We go to the country where AI originates from, and that is America. So if you look at America's profile in the last 10 years, it's the 180-degree opposite of that jobs data I was showing you. So the blue line is America's share of world profits. Till 2018, till 2017, America accounted for a third of the world's profits, right? For many decades up to 2017, America accounted for a third of the world's profits. And then as all of you in this room started watching YouTube videos and started using Insta and started watching Netflix and started using AI, what happened to that number? America's share of the world's profits went from 1/3 to 43% in the space of a decade, right? America's share of world profits is absolutely blasted through in the last 10 years, right? Everything that the American president is doing, he can afford to do it because his tech companies rule the world, right? They are basically exercising technology muscle. The slides that I'm showing you are on Microsoft Windows. Microsoft earns $120 billion every year selling those licenses to small firms like us. That file that I'm showing you is stored on Microsoft Azure. Microsoft earns another $120 billion selling cloud storage. On that $240 billion of revenue, Microsoft's profit margin is nearly 50%. Microsoft generates $80 billion of cash every year. What do they do with that? They reinvest that. What do they reinvest it in? In AI, in virtual reality, in gaming, in stuff that you and I will need over the next 10 years. Microsoft earnings compound. Microsoft's profits grow not at 5 or 10%. They grow in rupee terms close to 20%. Microsoft alone ends up being bigger than the Indian stock market, and Microsoft compounds twice as fast as the Indian stock market, right? So what I tried to figure out 3 years ago was, how do we in India profit from this, right? How do we profit from the world's greatest compounders? And how do we combine this, the world's greatest compounders, with India's greatest compounders, right? I discussed Microsoft with you, but let's discuss a less well-known company, because the perception in India is there's the Mag 7, Amazon, Microsoft, Nvidia, but even routine American and European companies are now part of our day-to-day life, right? Every single phone in this room is powered by the company on the top left. The company on the top left, its headcount will be roughly 1/10 of Reliance Industries. Its market cap will be roughly 1/3 more than Reliance Industries. Every single phone in this room, the circuit in your phone, the muscle in your phone comes from ASML. Notionally, it's headquartered in Holland, but effectively it's a company controlled by the American government. If a country stops getting ASML's extreme ultraviolet lithography machines, that's the end of the tech industry in that country. So 2 years ago, in the Biden administration, the American government ordered ASML. ASML is headquartered in Holland, but notionally headquartered in Holland. The American State Department decides who gets ASML's machines. ASML controls the world's tech engine, right? Similarly, the flight that I took an Indigo A321 to get here 12,000 parts on that plane, and anybody who takes flights in India, 12,000 parts on every flight that you take will come from HEICO. Right? HEICO is a small cap company in America. Almost all the replacement parts of most Indian planes come from HEICO, right? So what America has done, what Europe has done, but especially America, they have got a complete hammer lock on not just the mobile phones that we use. They've got a hammer lock on the entire tech ecosystem in our world. And our job is to capitalize on that and make money from it, right? Now, this aspect of making money from American companies, the coffee can global, becomes even more compelling because the correlation between our market and their market is amongst the lowest in the world, right? This is a God-given gift to us. So in simple terms, if two markets make a lot of money, and I showed you at the outset, India and America make a lot of money. Both markets make 10, 11% dollar returns. But the beautiful thing is, the two markets have very little to do with each other. In the last 30 years, only twice have India and America corrected in unison. Those two occasions were COVID and Lehman Brothers. If you leave aside COVID, Lehman Brothers, the two markets have never fallen together. In simple Hindi or simple English, if you diversify 50-50, your portfolio is more stable, your compounding doesn't suffer. So in cricket jargon, you'll have a Virender Sehwag batting for you and a Rahul Dravid batting for you. Regardless of how the pitch is, your score will be a decent outcome, right? Now, the government has done something very helpful for us. The government has created Gift City in Gujarat, right? I submit to you, you guys will hear Gift City more and more every passing week over the next few years. This city, this small venue in Gujarat, Gift City in Gujarat, for those who haven't been, would be roughly the size of one sector in Noida. Noida has, I think, 160 sectors. The size of one sector in Noida. All of India's important financial transactions to do with the world are gradually going to move to Gift City in Gujarat. Why is that? Because Gift City in Gujarat is giving Indians like us a chance to invest into the rest of the world at low cost and at low tax, right? If you haven't visited Gift City, I would say take a flight to Ahmedabad, go and visit Gift City. The future of a lot of Indian investing will be through Gift City in Gujarat, because what's been built there is remarkable. At record speed, the International Financial Services Authority is building a global financial center. The world's best investors, the world's best reinsurers, the world's best treasury departments are coming there. Already, the 5 of the world's biggest treasuries are doing global treasury investments from Gift City. We have a small office there, but I'm sure you'll hear more about Gift City. Become familiar with that name. It's your route to global investing at low cost and at low tax, right? But coming back to the global coffee can. So what's the global coffee can? The global coffee can is taking companies which are the best in our country, combining them with the best in the world, right? So the flight that I took, the Airbus flight that I took, the phone that I'm using, the phone that you're using, every single chip in this room we've already discussed, ASML, the reinsurer, the world's largest, most powerful reinsurer, Berkshire Hathaway, and then on and on into companies that are an essential part of our lives in India and abroad. And if we are able to do that, if we are able to combine the best that the world has with the best that India has, then the coffee can become stronger. And in doing so, in combining the world with India, we effectively pay tribute to a man who 110 years ago thought of this idea. So in 1916, in Bangla we call him Robi Thakur, in I think Hindi we'll call him Rabindranath Tagore. In 1916, Rabindranath Tagore wrote this book called Ghare Baire. Ghare Baire, I don't think I have to translate for you what that means. He said, combine the best in your house with the best in the world. If you combine the best, you get a powerful combination. It was turned into a super hit movie in the 80s, which is where I took the poster from. But that insight, that embrace the world, combine the best that India has to offer with the best in the world, enrich yourself, make a lot of money in modern India, that I think is the vision I would like to subscribe to. I thank Republic Media again for this opportunity. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Mr. Saurabh Mukerjea, for joining us here onto this stage for this insightful conversation. And